Hello, welcome to our Module 2, Lesson 3 of our CASP Plus course. This lesson focuses on vulnerability management, focusing on the following: vulnerability scans, SCAP or Security Content Automation Protocols, and information sources. So some introduction. Security professionals must always evaluate the security of operating systems, networks, industrial control systems, end user devices, and user behaviors. We need to use vulnerability scanning to check how safe our systems are all the time. We should use tools and protocols that are standard in the industry to make sure that everything works well across the enterprise. Professionals in security should know where to find information about current threats and security holes. We might need a third party to check on our security, which means we'll have to ask them to look at our systems. Independent audits may be needed to comply with rules, laws, or industry standards. Let's talk about vulnerability scans. Security experts must be able to recognize when systems lack critical security configuration or critical patches, which is why vulnerability scans are very crucial. Security experts in the company will perform vulnerability scanning to find systems that need to be fixed. Malicious actors may also use vulnerability scanning to find systems that are missing important security updates and configuration. They will try to take advantage of this flaws. So there's actually four different components here, or four types, right, for vulnerability scanning. First is the credentialed versus non-credentialed scans. So understanding the capabilities of the assessment tool is important when carrying out vulnerability assessments. To provide accurate data, useful information on the systems that are being scanned, credentials may occasionally be required. Some tools allow for anonymous scans and don't require login information. It is actually crucial that we provide privileged credentials if we want to obtain an accurate security assessment of an operating system. As a result, settings like the following will be listed in the vulnerability report, such as installed software version, local services, vulnerabilities in registry files, local file system information, and the patch levels. Next are agent-based, server-based scan. Some vulnerability assessment solutions call for the installation of an agent on the endpoint. The scan can be performed on the end device, and the results can be pushed back to the server-based management console, enabling the pull technology. There are alternatives as well, where no agents are used, or we call it agentless scanning. This implies that in order to obtain data from the end devices, the server must push out requests. Most of the time, agent-based evaluations will reduce network traffic and relieve some of the server's workload. Next is criticality ranking. So when we conduct a vulnerability assessment and review the output report, it is crucial to present the reports in a clear manner that enable us to identify the most important vulnerabilities and take the appropriate action. Two vulnerability scans are depicted on this specific figure, right? First two. First, the Wireshark installation related vulnerabilities are of very high priority, right? As you will see. According to a report, a software update can fix them. These vulnerabilities have been fixed according to the second scan. Other correction calls for application, service removal, and configuration workarounds. And the fourth one is active and passive scans, right? There. So the reporting and management station and the endpoints must communicate during active scanning. Passive scanning has the ability to gather log data and analyze it. We might not want to overburden the network or endpoints with additional reporting and subsequent network traffic on some networks, like operational technology networks, or OT. Passive scanning aims to perform network traffic analysis without data injection by connecting to a read-only port. So that's why it's saying here it's non-intrusive. While active scanning is quite a different strategy that can be used to produce reporting that is more accurate. So as you will see, active scanning says it's intrusive, the information is quite detailed, momentary scan more complex, and suited for specific queries. So also SCAP, right, which will be our next topic, is a prime illustration of active scanning. Now let's go to SCAP, Security Content Automation Protocol. So many vendors in the sector use SCAP right here, which is an open standard that supports a standard security reporting language. It is supported by the National Vulnerability Database, or NVD, which is an organization that receives funding from the US government and creates content that can be accessed by SCAP scanners. It meets the requirements of the FISMA, or Federal Information Security Management Act, and is widely used by the US government agencies such as the DoD, or Department of Defense. So there's a couple of components here. First one is XCCDF, or the Extensible Configuration Checklist Description Format. It's quite a long name, XCCDF. So a format for configurations files is specified in XCCDF. The SCAP scanner, a tool for assessing vulnerabilities, will deploy this checklist. They have been written in XML, okay? And these documents are more commonly referred to as a secure technical implementation guide within the US government and DoD. So if you want to know about if you want additional information, you can go to this specific website. So let's click that. It's taking some time. Okay, there you go. All right, so this is the Security Technical Implementation Guidelines, and you can go to the document library. All right, so you can see a couple of files in here that you can actually download. Okay, so for you to be able to get at least some information about how to protect these specific devices. It's just a lot. All of these are multi-vendors. You have Riverbed. Familiar with Riverbed? You have VMware, NSX, Trend Micro, SUSE, right, and so on and so forth. Okay. Next is OVAL, or Open Vulnerability and Assessment Language. OVAL is actually free in an open international standard. Vendors can produce output that is consistent thanks to it. So when they view a report generated by the Nessus tool, the output produced by a tool from a different vendor that is OVAL compliant will match it. Right? Let's go to the next one. CPE, or Common Platform Enumeration. So CPE is used to categorize various operating system varieties, hardware and software. The vulnerability scanning tool can then use this information to automatically decide which vulnerabilities to look for. As an illustration, if the system is recognized as running Linux and a common web application service, only those installed products need to be checked for these vulnerabilities. Right? Next is CVE, or Common Vulnerability and Exposures. So the NVD and MITRE both release CVEs, right? They provide information on the vulnerability, such as seriousness or significance of the vulnerability and the steps to take to address it. This will frequently be a link to a vendor site where you can download a patch or fix. Next is CVSS. So by employing a qualitative risk scoring, CVSS, right, or Common Vulnerability Scoring System, is used to determine the severity of vulnerabilities. So version 3.1 of the scoring formula is currently in use. So to view the metrics used, security professionals can access a CVSS calculator at this specific URL. So this is an example, but we can go to the website. So let's click that. All right, so it's just a matter of once you have a CVE, you can check. You can actually choose which one to applies, right, to your specific case. Let's say it's a network, high complexity, privilege required high, user interaction required change. Let's say it's high. So worst case, right? If you do this high, then you get a very high calculations here. So which means that this could be very critical, right? You can also choose some here, but high. So it gives you a view, right? About the severity of a specific vulnerability. Okay, next is CCE. Sorry about that. Or common configuration enumeration. So this group of identifiers makes it possible to quickly verify configuration items. So only software configurable items are currently covered by this specific standard. This standard enables the creation of templates using a common structure. So for the Microsoft Windows operating system, a standard set of identifiers is published. And as a result, template files that can be used with SCAP scanners can be created. Next are ARF, or Asset Reporting Format. ARF is a common report format that is built in XML templates. It makes it possible to format scan result in SCAP compliant manner. We should think about who will be in charge of the security assessment now that we are aware of the standards and tools available. Next is self-assessment versus third-party assessment. So in some circumstances where internal reporting is crucial, self-assessments may be acceptable. However, there are times when we may need third-party verification. For instance, in order to operate a certificate of authority, right, or CA, you would need third-party auditing reports. Governance and risk compliance should always be a continuous assessment. As your customers might only be able to work with suppliers who have accreditation, you would typically need third-party verification to operate as a cloud data center. Also, an annual penetration test, which would probably include a vulnerability scan, is required for a PCI DSS compliance. This annual examination cannot be carried out internally. And the last one is patch management. So here, appliances, right, servers, and end devices also all need to be updated frequently. OS or operating systems are used to run services, programs, and embedded firmware. Patches enhance system functionality while also, and more importantly, reducing security risks. System flaws may ultimately result in problems and operations availability. Now, before being made available to the customer, patches are first tested by the vendor. Patches occasionally break functioning systems, in which case the benefit of the patch is significantly outweighed by the necessity of maintaining the system's functionality. Therefore, before deploying patches into a production environment, an enterprise should test them thoroughly in a non-production environment, and there are actually numerous additional resources for information on security. All right, now let's talk about information sources. First, our advisor. So here, right? So automating the generation of reports and dashboards is quite critical, but it is equally important to consider other resources in order to maintain strong security posture. Additional vendor and industry-specific information is available through these sources. So let's talk about this 5. First one is the advisories, right? So company security advisory, whether issued by vendor and third party, should be closely monitored. When new vulnerability is discovered, such as a zero-day exploit, the information will be posted as an update. In order to keep security professionals up to date on the latest threats, this would be a very vital tool. We can use advisories to get information on potential threats, both new and old. So as a starting point, here are some of the useful URLs as a reference. So here we have one for Cisco, VMware, and Microsoft. So let's click each of them one by one. Now loading. Okay. So this one is for Cisco, and we can see a lot of security advisors here for different products. And the highest one here shows for telepresence. For VMware, let's look at critical. So these are the critical security advisories affecting all of these products of VMware. and also for Microsoft. Okay. Next are bulletins. Bulletins, right? Vendors can also use bulletins to inform their customers about potential security issues and vulnerabilities. Subscriptions via RSS feeds are supported by a large number of vendors. So here are the following examples of vendor security bulletins. So let's click this one. AWS, and this for Google Cloud. Okay, there you go. Security bulletins from AWS. Security bulletins for Google Cloud. Okay. Next is vendor websites. So here, security information can be found right on different vendor websites. Additional security related information, tools and also white papers and configuration guides may be available in addition to the previously mentioned websites like advisories and bulletins. Access to extensive security guidance and best practices is provided by a number of vendors, including Microsoft. So let's click this link. Let's see what it has. All right, so it shows security documentation. We can download some documents here. What else? Yep, there's just a lot of things you can get here, right, depending on what you need. This one is for network, IAM, storage, privileged access, and so on. Okay, it's pretty much a very good reference from Microsoft. Next is information sharing and analysis, or it's actually ISACs, right? So you have to put an I here. So ISACs allow organizations that provide critical infrastructure to share security information or cyber threats, and this is a global initiative. Information can be exchanged between public and private organizations with the help of this program. You can learn more about this initiative by visiting this website below. Let's go to that website, to National Council of ISACs. You can go to, look at the publication. Yep, and you can see a couple of documents here. Okay. Last one is news reports. So people's awareness of current threats and their perpetrators can be heightened with the help of news reports. So crypto malware and ransomware outbreaks were widely publicized in 2021. So in order to protect an organization's information system from ransomware, it is essential to be aware of this specific threat. Okay, that's the end of the lesson. On this lesson, we spoke about the following: vulnerability scans, security content automation protocols, and information sources. Okay, that's the end of the lesson. Thank you very much for watching the video.